should repeat Annette Billings, a little bit of quick bio of Annette. 6 books. She is an award-winning author who started writing full-time in 2015 when she retired from her career in nursing. She's also an actress, and you will see that as she shares her poetry with us. Her delivery is amazing. Both of our speakers today are performers, have performing experience, and both of them, I believe, are military kids. Is that right, Huascar? Yeah, so that's another common denominator between our 2 speakers. Annette was awarded the Topeka Arts Connect Artie Award for Literature in 2015, and she writes short stories and plays as well as poetry. Our second speaker, and they're going to kind of play off each other, so they may speak one after another, in more formal, longer blocks of time, or they may jump in and talk with each other as well as share their poetry. We'll get to hear their poetry. Is Huascar Medina. Huascar Medina is the 7th poet laureate of Kansas. He was born in Texas on a military base. He struggles with what it means to be an American, which I think is something that so many people are struggling with today in these times, especially to be an American of Latino descent. Panamanian and Puerto Rican family members, mother and father. Huascar has used his past 2 years as poet laureate to travel the state, making presentations. And if you go on YouTube, you can watch several of his presentations. Which is really a neat thing to do. And he's helping Kansans look at what it means to be a Kansan, and especially to be a Latino Kansan, as well as to just look at what is Kansas for those of us who live here, what kind of meaning it has. He runs marathons. He's a literary editor for the 785 magazine. He is also a playwright. He wrote Theodore's Love, which was staged in Topeka as part of the 5th annual Homegrown Playwright Project. He is the author of 2 poetry collections, at least. He has more in progress. One is How to Hang the Moon, which was published in 2017. And the second is Un Mango Grows in Kansas, which is, I believe, coming out soon, right? Is that correct, or has it already come out?
It's out. It happened during the pandemic. It's okay.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
It's not bad. No, it's out. It's been out there for a while. So.
And one of the sources of great pride for all of us is that Huascar was nominated recently by President Biden to be a member of the National Council of the Arts. The National Council of the Arts advises the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts on funding guidelines, grant applications, and leadership initiatives. So we have a national appointee to the National Council of the Arts, representing Kansas and representing the larger, not just Kansas, but from Kansas. So
one of the other things that Huascar and I have in common is a mutual love and respect for one another. I feel very fortunate to be reading with him this afternoon, and I look forward to how we will present words to you. I'm going to begin with a poem, Apples, Peaches, Pears, and Poems. There is an orchard in my soul where poems fall from me like fruit, self-contained testimonials to every season I have lived. Some fall still hard and green, blown too soon from me by an ill wind. Fall lush and sweet, just ripe for some mouth to recite. Now part lay rotting on the ground, worm-ridden, and awaiting validation from a harvester who never comes. The rest hang embryonic, a little more than a blossom's promise. I'll take these, you say, as you bruise my best and discard my worst. But I am absorbed in gathering them all. Too absorbed, in fact, to acknowledge you, fool that you are, who thinks I grow them solely for your consumption.
Isn't that the case? How much time we spend in rejection as writers? I think that is like one of the most important aspects of trying to publish work is accepting rejection. So it feels good to be in a welcoming space with people that I care about and people that I love and respect so much, like you, Annette. So I appreciate the invitation to share space with Annette and words with y'all today. So I'm gonna follow that with a poem. I heard the word orchard, and I'm thinking of a poem of mine that has the word orchard in it, and it's also about fruit. And it's
Mm.
one mango season in Puerto Rico. A trip advisor question from Jack. My sister wanted to go visit Puerto Rico, where my dad's from. She doesn't have a good relationship with my father, so she decided to go to TripAdvisor to get answers. And one of the answers stunned me. It was from the island of Vieques. The entire island of Vieques, which is a small island off of Puerto Rico, has a TripAdvisor account. And the response from the island of Vieques was, somewhere in Vieques, there's always a tree with fruit. You just need local knowledge. I've yet to see a mango tree in Kansas. Most things here are from elsewhere. Even my jam travels into town. Do you know? They grow a type of heaven in an orchard in a place called Santa Cruz. A mango spread, non-GMO, organic, 40 calories per tablespoon. It smells fleshy, like roadside mangoes, dropped from a tree, too ripe to grow, too old to save. There was a summer in Yabacoa where the street side parking lots and driveways were paved in mangoes. We ate mango flavored everything that summer. The taste of mangoes will make your eyes close. I ate my first gusano that July. I didn't mind. I never saw it. It was still bliss. Fruit flies are angels, born in their own kind of heaven. If I had to choose a fruit or a food to live in, I think I would choose lasagna. Random fact.
Well, as Gretchen said, I spent many decades of my life uh, as a nurse. And one of the things we teach patients and their families about is uh, having advanced directives in place. And advanced directives is a legal document that tells your healthcare team what you would want done if you were unable to speak for yourself, what you would want done medically. And it tells your healthcare team who in your family or circle of friends you would want to speak for you if you were ill. And so as a nurse and as a poet, I've given a lot of thought to advanced directives and what I would want to be done if I couldn't speak for myself. And of course, things that you think of initially are things like CPR or dialysis. But when it comes right down to it, there is a simpler uh, litmus test that I'd like to be done if I were ever in a situation where I could not speak for myself. And this short poem is entitled Advanced Directives. My living will instructs, should my quality of life be unclear, they are to part my lips, press a slice, press a slice of fresh mango to my mouth. If I do not stir, let me go. Heard a diagnosis, all have come to fear. Her doctor calls to say the test revealed a cancer in her breast that could steal her life and take her hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It led us to such deep despair. It took her breasts, it took her hair. It raged ahead despite her valiant fight. But though her lovely spirit slowed, cancer could not dull the grace she showed or phase the beauty of her hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. In the end, despite her fight, the thief of cancer took her life too soon for us to know which way to mourn. No cancer cells explain the win, because she left us with her hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Cancer takes so many lives: mothers, sisters, daughters, wives, husbands, brothers, sons are taken too. Our memories ease the grace of it, and we must vow to never quit, to breathe and love and live their hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I love the kindness in your voice that's always apparent, Annette, in the way that you read poetry. That a poem I'm going to share is one about vulnerability, and I think that's where that kindness comes from, that ability to be authentic in the work, the way that we share it. So this poem is entitled "Exposed." A bit of my heart has crawled into my mouth, pulsing and throbbing, yearning in a red reserved for hidden muscles. So it aches, speaking in a way only a wound would heal.
Oftentimes, as a little Black girl in Kansas, I wanted to find things that looked like me, people and things that reflected who I was and where I came from. And this next poem that I'll share with you, it's called Just Shy of Stars, with our state motto being ad astra per astra, to the stars through difficulty. I've often given thought to what would happen if, despite my best abilities, I still wound up just shy of a star. A brown girl wanders amber waves. A gold garland of woven wheat crowns her head of defiant curl. Chest tight with longing, she scoured the fields for any of Kansas that bears a likeness to her. Serenaded by meadowlarks, she kneels to smell rich county soil, brushing the ground with her cupid's bow mouth, lips lush in a way that makes the earth feel blessed. She creeps up near a bison herd and grins at their hides of richest brown. They scatter with her cries of, "Hey, you beauties, dark like me." A cottonwood invites her to its shade, where she lingers under summer leaves. She stretches out and is lulled to sleep by the lilt of honeybees buzz. She dreams of future difficulties, of places where she'll find herself still just shy of stars. Foreshadowed failures work to startle her awake, and she surveys the surrounding land. She plots a hearty stew of poems to put meat on her Midwest bones, its broth rendered thick and smooth with a roux of Gwendolyn Brooks and Langston Hughes, of Aaron Douglas and Gordon Parks, a stew seasoned to withstand with Dexter, a plains meal to live her hopeful and uppity enough to demand her hometown be more than a good place to dig potatoes. It must be a good place to grow Black girl, too. It is said that the word Topeka meant a good place to dig potatoes or a good place to grow potatoes. So that's what that last reference is in regards to. Yeah.
The state motto here. But I have a poem called "Per Astra at Astra." I kind of flipped it just to I don't know, maybe it's easier to find in the future, because I think there's a rite of passage, pun intended, there for Kansas poets. You know, that you have to write a poem about Kansas at some point. I think you always have to write about what home is, and sometimes home is your locale. So this poem is called "Per Astra at Astra," and it's also about trying to connect with the stars. We were lost in the plains, beautiful and ordinary, sunflowers in the fields, seeds of fallen stars, standing tall, deeply rooted in this land. I've admired how our flowers shine, grasping towards the sky, beyond the prairie grass, anchored down to earth, mimicking the sun. When the gardener plants the seeds of helianthus, they are performing magic, raising stars out of the dust where buzzing planets circle, half red moons set, and swarming comets float in orange comas. I've always felt that late at night in the bed of a truck in a Kansas field, we were at the center of this universe, and I was exactly where I should be, amongst the flowers, not below.
I was asked to present in front of a college university class of freshmen, and I sat in the professor's office to wait until it was time for class to start. And as I was sitting there, a couple of other professors walked in that I didn't know, and they didn't know me, but they were talking about how irritated they got when writers wrote about writing. And I thought, uh-oh, I love writing about writing. And but the presentation went just fine. This next one I'll share is some of the things that I love about poetry, the things that draw me to it. And it's called A Case for Poetry. Poetry requests such brief moments in time. What it takes to cook a 3-minute egg, to sew on a button, or repot a small plant. It has no demands for commitment like novels. A poem presents itself like a blind date, putting forth its best first impression, flirting and revealing enough of itself to make you want to read it again. A poem is content to inhabit a meager space. Still, it knows it can cover vast ground. And few poems have ever justly been deemed worth less than the time spent to read them. I'll read another about writing up poetry. And it goes to my discovery that whether one person, for me, whether one person is listening or 100, I still have that same flush of excitement when I'm sharing poetry or listening to poetry. This is called One or Two. It may be no huge crowds will ever await you, and the only masses gathered to hear you will be paltry souls, one or two, a couplet of poetry patrons who heard you might speak a good word. Still, promise you will, for those sparse listeners, read for them like the numbered legion, with zest normally reserved for standing room only. Say you will cherish their quiet applause like it came from a sold out crowd, and thank them for coming like they were an audience of enormity. Do this, and know your acclaim may not be that you drew in hordes of people. It may be that you shared words with a few, like they were a crowd of many.
That's the experience, isn't it? Like that, I think the connection with that one poet or that one audience member who's really connected to your work, or one line, or one poem, and they tell you, the other day I had an individual who I met, who has family in San Antonio, and a family member died, and they're from San Antonio, and I'm a transplant from San Antonio, and she took one of my poems and shared it with her family, and it meant a lot to me for them to share that poem at a very difficult moment because they lost their mother who was in San Antonio, and they live in Kansas now. And it just meant a lot to know that the work can have that kind of healing presence for individuals. It gives them the words that sometimes we don't have when we're in grief. And yeah, that it meant a lot to me. But I'm not going to share that poem yet because I haven't found it. What I will share is I'm always defending being a poet. What does it mean? Is it can you be successful being a poet? You do it because you love it. It is you do it because it's a way you communicate with the world, see the world, it's a lens you put on the world around you. You investigate things, you explore things, you build bridges with poetry. But my partner one time, this title is taken from a conversation we had. After I was reminded she will always make more money than me. So um, there are costs associated with my living and I pay it. I never met a rich poet. I'm okay if I never do. Some of us work odd jobs, avoiding hunger, almost homeless, transient souls dancing in boheme mirages, gambling with whispers. We travel light, hawking chapbooks for gas towards the next utterance, hoping for a little extra cash to take the edge off a mile down the road. The value of $1 is not the value of my words. I've written precious things that fit into palms, canaries that memorize your name. They sing an aria from entryways, dug alone in darkness. I search for words. Words turn floating hands into fire pits. Mother, womb, lily, bowl, valley, shovel, lake bed, wicker basket, metal box, open mouth, shallow grave, treasure chest, denim pocket, butterfly, universe, and confessors. Woven fingers hold words like hand grenades. This one is heart, this one as secret, this one a moment, a handshake, dice, seashells, ocean. I'm enriched in other ways. Each time I look about, I notice I'm surrounded by the priceless things living this way has given me, and all I did was pay attention.
Mm.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
There are those who, when they think of poets and poetry, they think how nice and how boring. And I think it's just a matter of them not having yet heard. Because poetry's not always nice. This is entitled Well and Good. It was all well and entirely good when they wrote of kittens and flowers. They were fervently greeted with a cacophony of oohs and an appreciative avalanche of awe. As long as their poems weren't contentious, they were held in high regard. When their time came for poetry to be about injustice and inequality, they sang an entirely different tune. They took it up an entire octave, added more sharps, removed some flat. Now they find the fruit of their labor too ripe, to the point that they draw bile from the gut. You have demoted each from favorite poet to persona non grata overnight. But sometimes a poem is supposed to be a rock in the heel of your shoe, a lash that falls into the whites of your eyes, a thorn that's made its home in your side, a Charlie horse galloping in at 3 a.m. We will not always deliver pretty poems. That was never our intended goal. So, with their manuscripts, there'll be more words in the poet. Kittens, pretty flowers are scarcely in need of poems when hard truths plead for birth. So much so that a poet may need to write so much so that what a poet may need to write is less a sonnet and more a rant.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I feel that, Annette. I feel that, the work that's typically picked up is not it's not the work that has all the truth in it for myself. you know. The work that I'm asked for is not always the most confrontational, the most honest work that I can write. And one of those poems that still hasn't found a home is I call it a love poem because I wrote it during a lot of political upheaval. And there was a lot of racial tension at this time. And me and my partner were going through a lot and trying to figure out what we could do, to be allies. As the Black Lives Movement was like really in full swing. And um, I didn't write her a Valentine's poem that year. That's recent. So and I'm like, wow, why didn't I? And I had to think about it for a while. And the poem I wrote was Nobody But You. I wish for a time when every other poem isn't about our bodies, not about creating space for our bodies, not about rediscovering displaced bodies, not about accepting rejected bodies, not about reclaiming stolen bodies, not about fighting for our bodies, not about healing bodies, not about saving dying bodies, not about mourning murdered bodies, not about the body politic. I wish for a day when every poem is for everybody, and I could write you a love poem without loathing the fact it won't save anybody outside of us.
Mm. Yeah.
You speak of political upheaval and the body. I will offer this poem in light of the recent legislation in Texas. It's entitled Posted No Trespassing. My body is my birthright, my property, my ground. No one holds a lien to my patterns, to my fields. It is not subject to eminent domain in regards to what I allow to grow in or on it. There is nothing for anyone to commandeer here. What resides here is for me to allow or prevent or undo. I am free to sow orderly crops or let the whole of it grow indelibly wild. I'm free of opinions and legislation. My body is my birthright, my property, my ground. Stay off my land.
That that leads me to a poem where I'm trying to figure out, trying to encompass a space that's occupied by individuals who don't think the way that I do. Sometimes, I have no political ties. I'm an independent, living in a red state, but also a lot of my views are progressive. I wrote a poem called In the Red. Um, you've worked so hard from the farm to the factory, in the country and the city. You've always paid on time for peace of mind, your body as collateral. So you may rest and retire when the time came, knowing you'll be fine. But somehow you still owe today, and you are all out of body.
Now, when you envision the strong Black woman, do you ever see her seated, tired, head bowed into hands, undone and overspent? Do you consider she may be weary of setting some imposed curve? That she may be weary of carrying more weight than she has shoulders for? Sometimes when the call goes out for heroes, she may ache to be passed over. Do you recognize her back is more broken than just bowed? What the world calls flesh wounds would be lethal to most. When you envision the strong Black woman, instead of giving a round of applause, offer her a seat.
I want my son to be liberated from the necessity to be resilient. You know, I think that's in the future for him. He's Caucasian, he's Panamanian, he's Puerto Rican. He's this beautiful multi-ethnic boy, and I wrote a poem for him called "Hijo," because I don't want him to experience some of the things I experienced growing up. Your emotions are not a red flag. Your tiredness and sadness are not a threat. Your smile does not have to intercept stares from other men walking with their wives quelling their masculinity. Your honesty will be a burden to liars. It is not your fault. You're allowed to be beautiful without the label of lecherous. You can be soft without being weak. You can be weak. You can be powerful and still be kind. Forgive or don't. You can be at peace and not a mystery. You can put down your guard. You can be vulnerable, laugh or cry or both. You can speak before spoken to. You do not have to say a word. Be silent and take up space if you want to or don't. Your silence is not intimidation. Your voice is not aggression. You can sing and dance whenever, wherever. Choose love if you want or don't. You are just you being you, magnificent you. My precious boy, I ask that you never ask for permission to be beautiful. You were born with the right to all of your you-ness.
Mm. There is a notion that everybody has some dirty laundry that they would just as soon keep hidden. And I wrote a poem about kind of twisting that notion on its head. And it's entitled Laundry. I hang my soul's laundry outside on the line in the yard, in front of God and all to see, nosy neighbors, incomplete strangers who drive by slowly to gawk. Deeply stained articles of my life just flapping in the breeze on purpose. I pin them on the line in defiance. I hang them up with premeditation and I let them fly like flags. This I do in hope some splintered spirit will happen by and see my soul's garments looking uncannily like their own, ones they are too ashamed to show. And may it release them, embolden them, dare them to free their own soul's apparel from dark, dank places and commit them to fresh air and bright sun. And may they drape them in triumph beside mine. And for those who are brave enough to air their laundry, I offer this poem, Brava. When performance, opera or a play is done well, oftentimes the audience will be moved to yell, bravo, bravo. But in a woman's world, when a woman does a good job, it should be brava. And in theater, when a production is about to begin, the stage manager will say to the cast, places, which means to get ready, brava. When they called places, she refused to debut as victim. She made them whole one while she adjusted her stance. She called for a bedazzler to decorate her scars and made them reprint the playbill, rename her character Survivor. She made her entrance, found her mark, upstaged all doubt that she could carry the part. By the time they call curtain, roses carpeted her stage. She bowed before a rapt audience to exchange their pity for applause.
Share a poem called Actress. And I'm inspired to share a poem called Actress now. So outside, you are polished stone. Wandering in, I notice ornateness draped in the color of an opera house. You look divine in costume, festive in a full room, alone, more sedia, full of empty space. I watch you, nudging for attention, penitent for lacking interest, so tired of the songs. You need not wear that smile now. I'm not here for the show.
Hmm. I think you mentioned polished stone in that poem. I'll share now diamonds. Single mother, awake in the night, bends her head over piles of bills, doing best all by herself what would be difficult for two. All demands on her are doubled, all the resources are halved. She is the bridge who spans the distance between ends that never meet. She is expected to be the answer for every question asked, which makes her a kind of tired that no amount of rest can resolve. She makes impossible choices, pay the light bill, buy kids' shoes, always up before sun and her children, so she can weep before they rise. She could fashion a stew of worry if it meant her children would eat well. She stands from the table, wipes her eyes, dons a smile to awaken her children. All life has ever issued her has been coal, but it is diamond she will raise.
The responsibility of a mother is a responsibility that I will never feel. I'm a father, right? But being a mother of children and also being an artist and trying to find balance in those two lives, I I was able to witness in a good friend of mine's who's a blues singer out of Topeka named Ellie Smith, and this poem is entitled "Singing Her Blues." Those stage lights are bright, but never as hot as the 40-watt bulb blazing in the porch light outside your home. That spotlight, that searchlight, that second sun, keeping the day longer than it needs to be. Your front door is as far from backstages as you will ever get. But when you're at a gig and someone in the audience insists you sing your heart out, we will glance at each other, smiling with our little secrets. That's okay. It's none of their business anyway.
Titled Rise. As night recedes and dawn ascends, there lives a moment when I, night, and she, day, intersect, where we hang in combined air and become entirely each other's. In this juncture where ebony and light coincide, my soul takes deep inspirations of satin contentment, exhales sighs of velvet gratitude. In this shared early space, my heart leans in, finds its increase, and commences a sacred glow. Sunrise unfolds, floods me with the delivery of promised light, assures me of radiant occasions wrapped in a sunlit future. Ever a gentle woman, morning arcs toward me. I meet her halfway to offer up my moon laden heart. I cling as she mounts the sky and shines herself to full height and becomes a Kansas horizon. With this birth of morning, I curtsy and fully surrender my dark. With her new day breath on my skin, a slow heat penetrates me until I acquiesce and I completely rise too. We swirl upward, backlit, blended opposites. Then in unison across the early sky, we bear down and deliver day.
Oh,
How wonderful to have companionship in the dark, to arise and find light in the morning. And it reminds me of the many nights that I thought I found companionship when I was lonely and woke up alone but okay. Where the songbird goes at 3 a.m. Beneath a porch light, peeking through my sleeves, magpies tug on tiny wind chimes, jingling blue ballads while a note is held too long after last calls are muted and memory surrounds sound. A June beetle scurries and beats the door. I hear crickets whisper picayune. Then a Polyphemus pulls me in, bright-eyed, full of pity, a gentle self. The screen door never closes here. Moonlight's entry, gust of air, creaking hinges and walkway rugs. I can hear the northern sea oats crashing into cheatgrass during sky tides. It's the rustling, the sound we let in. It ends abrupt. I rest until morning when the magpies go and I again can tholl alone, flying away singing into today, back into the glade, back into the light, back into the clearing, into today, back into the glade, back into the light, back into the clearing, into today, back into the glade, back into the light, back into the clearing.
As well as being a light driven person, I love water. Water, people often think that if you get into water, and this is entitled Holy Water. I, water, having fully drenched each part you present, I find you faultless. I find you totally acceptable, utterly free of error, and entirely worthy to enter deep into me. I, water, part for your descent, yield for your departure. I covet the sum of you. I caress the all of you. I welcome the whole of you, which you so generously bring. I, water, feel no excess in the wake of your body's passing. I swirl around you, ripple against you, flow beside you, lap between you. I, water, find you exuberantly sufficient, clothed or naked, to step, wade, float, tread, splash, spin, stroke as you will, while you want, until saturated with me, you fancy to exit. I, water, having shamelessly sodden your every surface, deem you perfect. And I bless you for your presence, which renders me holy.
I love our conversation and poetry today. If it's all right, I'd like to share 2 poems. Annette, is that okay with you?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. This one is unpublished. This poem is entitled Panama City Beach Boy. This is not a postcard. This is not a love note. You are not a tourist. I never wanted to be left or treated like a destination traveled to and away from, loved like vacations. Stay with me. Let's plant flowers in a garden that requires collected water. Label the seasons according to our bloom. Work with the earth and with each other. Treat ourselves as homeland. Avoid our own private diaspora. there's I find love to be a blessing, a gift, the closest to heaven that we will experience on earth, whether it's the love for our parents, the love for our children, the love for our friends. There's many forms of love. So it's called speaking in tongues. I will hold private revivals. I will pray to anything holy for you. Whenever you walk in with all that salvation awaiting me, I swear to never hush the hallelujahs whispering in my souls. Oh Lord, I'd speak in silent tongues within her mouth if she'd listen, inhaling gospel after gospel, damning every bit of sin, washing away the guilt we once felt for creating heaven in a land where no one's innocent. Goddess, I just wanted to taste the Yahweh in your mouth, feel the warm forgiveness in your breath, baptize our unborn smiles, turn our lips into Quakers. There is nothing wrong with that. There was never wrong in that. God will understand.
But this next one is clarification. It's short. Let me be clear. I do not have writer's block. I am not blocked. I am too full, and I'm considering trading my keyboard for a brick. And along with all that trial activity and all other racist incidents that were occurring, there was COVID. There is COVID. This one is titled Crosshairs, the separate form. During this present length of quarantine time, with its deluge of poem-worthy world affairs, one would imagine I'd write volumes of poetry. The truth is, I am rabid, pregnant, with overdue poems, but with no delivery date in sight. All the supposed nests for newly natal poetry, those nests are lined with thorns. My world, this world is under siege, so I keep my poetry to myself. It's hard to write with a crowned virus that has declared itself king, coupled with feral men formerly clothed in white robes, not to be mistaken for angels, who now dress in polo shirts and carry tiki torches. I sit frozen at my keyboard, imagining which ism will get me first. I'm caught in the crosshairs of corona and racism. It's just a matter of which is the better shot. I'm pulled from writing to check to see that the windows are shuttered and the locks are locked. While my muse feels bound and gagged, I'm miles away from a poet's repose. There is little writing to be done in the crosshairs. All I manage to do is breathe.
I wrote quite a few pieces for friends during the pandemic who lost family members and loved ones. I remember reading an article, which is kind of weird, but it ties in the poem about that birds sing in the morning to check if their partners or their mates are alive. And I thought it was interesting. I mean, I don't know if they can prove that. I mean, you don't know. But I wrote a poem that kind of ends with that. And it's called When Sunrise Looks Like Fire. Let me know how far I have to walk to get There, my friend, save me a space beside you to sit and listen, to hold your hand as you grieve. My palms are large and catch most things. You can rest yours here in mine. Nestle away a tiny fraction of your loss. I can't take it from you, but I can hold it with you. We can sit all night and not say a word, treat tears like mist or morning dew or shooting stars or sun rays, all bound to return again just after we've survived another today. Together, we can wait until dawn and listen to the birds as they ask if everyone's all right, who made it through the night, and are those reds and yellows actually daylight? Or has another fire broke out? And where do we go from here?
The difference. Happiness is a bubbling, babbling brook coursing giddily in the sun, always at the mercy of rain, subject to the whim of drought. Joy is an opulent ocean, immense in depth, in width, not at the mercy of circumstance, constant in both scarcity and wealth. Happiness is a handful of kindling, joy, a sizable log of birch. No one should trade an ounce of joy for a pound of happiness because happiness ignites quickly, but joy burns long.
And I wrote a poem which I really thought was about Alex Trebek when he passed because I love Jeopardy. Jeopardy was just it was a constant for me. And this poem is entitled "What is a Father Figure?" And it's a bit longer, and I apologize, it's unfinished, but I feel this is a good space to share new work. So thank you for making me feel comfortable today. What is a father figure? Today I asked my mother when she divorced my father. Sometime after Germany, she says, "What is disassociation?" Our family returned from Frankfurt to the US when we were all young and learning. I don't know how much German, English, and Spanish we spoke, but we spoke them at home and kept to ourselves. I love you, ma. Te amo, madre. Ich lieb dich, Mutter. What is a mother tongue? By 95, my parents divorced. Hazy vision of hiding in a black Astro van, chrome trim Dayton's, big spoiler, tinted windows, 3 liters of pop, a bag of chips, my sisters and I sweating, waiting in a courthouse parking lot, playing war. What is an escape route? Shuffling in my stomach, a deck of bicycle rider cards, the red ones, the logo on the box, a goddess with a blade, trapped in a spade. My mother slides the door open. Okay, let's go. What is a custody battle? She worked 3 jobs in Texas to feed 3 kids. One day, after a long rain, our apartment roof caved in. In Panama, my mother grew up with 11 siblings, no electricity, a wood fire stove, and a tin roof that never caved in. What is poverty? Alex Trebek was always there to greet me after school. During college championship week, I'd read the sweaters and t-shirts with words like Ithaca, Brown, and Harvard on them and wondered where they were located, and if they were safer than my school. What is an education? Alex teaches. Think fast. Gamble just enough to win, but not enough to lose it all. But sometimes you have to go all in, and it's okay to lose it all. Even people with all the answers still need day jobs. No one is always right. Being smart is profitable. You can't win them all, but you should try to win the most. Wrong answers can lead to the right one. How you say things matters. Question everything. What is a father figure?
I use the thesaurus a lot. I feel so passionate about words. I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting about a word that may say what I want to convey even better than the one that comes to mind first. I made a pact with myself to stop using the word wonderful because there are so many other words that convey similar or even more passionate feelings. So I use the thesaurus a lot.
I carried a small pocket thesaurus for years, well, my satchel bag, and then I got a smartphone, and now I can look up any word I want to, but also I can get the etymology of the word, and that can sometimes inform your poem as well. So there's a gift in having access to the internet all the time. So the thesaurus just got a lot bigger, and so did my word bank. All of a sudden, I don't pretend to know all the words I use, but I'm always searching for new words. And so it's about having the right word in the right place. But sometimes if you don't know what that word is, you have to go find it.
That poem has been very meaningful for me, having been through some life experiences that might make a person feel dirty or soiled or somehow uh, needing to be hidden. So part of my recovery and healing from those events has been to write about them.
Good city. And when I first moved to Kansas, I moved to Holton and then to Topeka. And I came from San Antonio, which is just a big city. So I had this culture shock. I missed home, and I would go to Kansas City, just to fill the city a little bit. So this poem is about Kansas City, but it's like a letter to San Antonio. Surrogate City. Mama, estoy bien. Mother KC has adopted me. She too wears iron garments of concrete and glass, winks at me to cross the streets, reminds me I'm cared for through sirens in the air. She hums a highway lullaby of old Paseo Puente, so I may pass the nights. Skylines don't resemble mi vieja San Ciudad in peace. She embraces your son, the sun, el sol, my soul. Mother, Casey has been good to me.
And here in Topeka, we have Brown v. Board uh, National Monument. That's not the word I want. Uh, and a couple of years ago, they decided to paint a mural that is very close to Brown v. Board Foundation. And on the bottom of the mural, which is 30 feet long, are words from a poem of mine that will be there long after I'm dead, which is a marvelous feeling. I feel very honored to have that there. And those words are from the poem "What You Allow Lingers." Oh, what you allow lingers. What you allow lingers. And what you invite stays put. So speak rudely to discord and all its sullen sisters. Ignore bribery when it knocks. Usher in joy, like a long lost friend. Pick its coat, its hat, entertain peace, chat up passion, pamper generosity, and give justice to destiny. Sweep the porch and put out a welcome mat for goodness, and let your life be poorly suited for anything except love. And when hate knocks, act as if you have moved.
Write poetry from a place of possibility and opportunity, and wishfulness. Um, so this poem is for today. Today I write to you of promise and truth. I write for now, not of tomorrow nor yesterday. Today I write to you where age is indifferent, here in our moment, the past having passed, the future uncertain. Today I write to you as reminder to be present, ever vigilant, self-aware and care. Today I write to you to say, I will be kind, I will take heed, and I will ask when I'm in need. Today I write to you as a clearing of space, left filled yet empty still, of wounds or wrongs untreated, of any feeling in need of healing, be gone. Today I write to you, I'm here with you in the now.
As the years proceed of my life, I've learned to be uh, content and aware of now. This is called I'm okay with old. I hold no animosity toward my many varicosity. I'm okay with graying hair and boring white underwear. I'm okay with old. I have my share of aching joints and bosoms which no longer make their point. I'm not sure what went wrong. Once they were big, now they're just long. I'm okay. I'm okay with old. As for chins, I have a few, but what's a well-fed gal to do? I understand that in the end, fiber truly is my friend because I'm okay. I'm okay with old. I embrace my puffy eyes and my chubby cellulitic thighs. I don't much mind my baggy skin because I still love the dame within. I'm okay. I'm okay with old. I've given in to all my wrinkles and how often I have to tinkle. I'm good with wiggly upper arms because I've held fast to most of my charms. I'm okay. I'm okay with old. It's true. I have two knees that creak, but I can still make soothing sweet. It may take me a longer while, but when I still step with style. I'm okay. I'm okay with old. I don't care what youth has got. I still have gems that youth has not. I'm okay with old.
Mm.
This poem is the titular poem to When Mango Grows in Kansas. It's called When Mango Grows in Kansas. You have found me, hidden in a wheat field, within a husk of corn, growing for you. I am ready. Pick me. Hold me in your hands. Remove my skin. Peel away my color. Find that I am tender, soft, and sweet. Eat of me until there is nothing and your mouths are empty and your bellies filled. What is left will live as seed to grow again, brighter, hardened, and less bitter.
Morning love. We awaken in the cool of morning, stretching and moving like dancers to a shared warmth. I have been dreaming of you again, and you have been dreaming of me, and we share that familiar ache that helps dreams trickle into waking. The sun looks in our window as we open to each other like roses, pink roses, petal by petal, leaf by leaf, we open. And I am late for work again.
If the moon shattered and fell out the sky, I would gather its shards, build a mosaic of night, so you may sleep and dream in peace. If the sun were to cool, I would dance ablaze in a dervish outside your window, so the birds would chirp in the light of false mornings, waking you with love songs. If the sea disappeared, I'd lay mirrors on an ocean bed near the coastline so you could see the blue depths of my devotion and pick it up like sea glass whenever you choose. And if the wind were to stop, I'd whisper in your ear each day to remind you air can still move you. Don't Marry Giants is the name of the poem. Thank you for asking for it. And it starts with a quote from Sylvia Plath's diary entry on February 26, 1956, as a day after she met Ted Hughes, who I feel is one of the reasons why she left us so soon. So the quote is, "That big, dark, hunky boy, the only one there huge enough for me." Don't Marry Giants. I want to build a time machine and go back to when women were ladies and dresses were casual, when only husbands could be gentlemen and a ringless finger was a prick. I would move to Devon and become a gardener. I would have an affair with Sylvia and purposely get caught. Muddy boot prints would lead him to a shaky bedside where he would find us with jazz, Wordsworth, and daffodils, naked, sweaty, and whispering poetry into each other's mouths. I hope it hurts him. Then she could divorce him prior to his complete consumption of every piece of pre-cut paper, thinly sliced confession. I'd leave her an anthology of love letters as goodbye, jump into my time machine, and return to today's somber. It would be worth it, though. So I could read her poetry about me in the New Yorker in the not too distant past, aptly titled That Little Prick.
Sometimes, even as a full-time poet, I revert back to my nursing persona. So I want to share with all of you that in a day's time, you should have at least 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. Now that sounds like a lot, but actually a serving is a half a cup, so it's fairly easy to get in. Now it's mid-afternoon now, so if you haven't had your recommended amount of servings yet, I will offer this poem as a serving or two. Whispered, "Watch me." She was sprawled on my front porch, all sweaty in cut-off jeans. She pulled a fleshy fruit from a crumpled brown sack and held it just beyond my grasp. "That's a peach," she cooed, rubbing fuzz against her cheek. "First bite?" she offered. I shook my head and waited. The sound she made when she bit it seeped into my ears, and the image of firm flesh succumbing to a tender mouth flashed inside my eyelids, and I felt woozy. She nibbled and swallowed until only the peach was left between us, all wet and sticky and sweet. She stood and stretched, and her navel winked at me. The juice from her cleavage fell in warm drops on my face. She kissed my forehead, she kissed my eyes, she kissed my mouth, and told me I was such a peach.